So what if I told you that the CFP semifinal, let's go back all the way to August. And what if I told you that Texas Christian University would be in the national championship? You're shocked, right? What if I told you that in August, Jim Harbaugh would be not only beating Ohio State twice, getting the Big Ten championship twice in a row for 2 straight years, and put up 45 in the college football playoff and still lose? You'd be pretty shocked, right? What if I told you that Ohio State wouldn't be even in the Big Ten championship and yet still have a double digit lead over Georgia in the fourth quarter and still find a way to lose with CJ Stroud playing the best game of his collegiate career? You'd be shocked, right? That was the college football playoff on Saturday, and boy, what an event it was. It started with TCU and Michigan as I was listening to it on the radio with Max Duggan and them taking control very early on in this game. The entire storyline for the entire month of December was that Michigan's physicality, even without Blake Corum, would be able to handle TCU in big fashion. I believe Michigan was a big point in the terms of the spread for Vegas. I think Michigan was heavily favored in almost every outlet, in every book that you checked. Michigan, though you had to take the Wolverines. I said on the podcast with Luke Winstall, episode 109, that you should check out. I said that Michigan will be in the national championship and perhaps win it as they match up good with Georgia, at least this year. I was incorrect. Michigan taking the first play with Donovan Edwards straight down the middle into the end zone, and then leading a Philly special type of play on 4th and goal. Even still, I was confident in the Wolverines. TCU is in the national championship. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. And I think when Kansas was playing TCU on College Game Day, it never dawned on me that, hey, this team could maybe make a run and go to the national championship. Maybe New Year's Six crossed my mind. Winning the Big 12 crossed my mind, especially with Oklahoma struggling the way they did. I think what I'm trying to get at is you have to credit Sonny Dykes for an unbelievable first year, dominating FCS football with North Dakota State and making his way into the Power Five picture and getting to the national championship with a chance to have a very significant upset on his hands against the Georgia Bulldogs. I thought TCU played a fantastic game, very balanced, and they never flinched. I think my thought process was when TCU was up 21-6, it was okay. They've been on the opposite side of this. Every game, it felt like TCU found a way to get down, and they were the comeback kids. They were the team that you didn't want to see have a 10-point deficit because they were always a team that didn't flinch, the hypnotoads. They never really looked like they showed any fear. It's like one of those predator things, like, oh, they can smell fear. TCU never let you smell it. They never let you get anywhere close to it. And so you thought, okay, they're up 21-6. How do they handle being on the receiving end? I put out a tweet, and you should follow me on Twitter. I said, how does TCU go in halftime? What is Sonny Dykes' message? How do they handle this? How do they handle not being the one in the face of adversity? They got to be able to keep Michigan's rally. They got to keep them away. They got to keep them at bay. And they did that for a majority of this game. They were able to control it. Max Duggan played the game of his life. And what a story for him, having heart issues during COVID, breaking his leg his junior year, and coming out and throwing for 2 touchdowns. He didn't throw the ball as well as I thought, but I think he still was able to get a connection with Quentin Johnston and really be able to revive what that makes that TCU offense special. And they ran the ball very well, and they were very, very physical on the other end. And they were able to create points on defense, which what good championship teams do. They create points on offense and they create points on defense. They're able to have a balance. One doesn't dominate the other, and TCU is able to do that on both sides of the football. It was a heck of a game. Unexpected. It kind of reminded me of the Rose Bowl in 2018 where Oklahoma got up big and quick, and Georgia was able to kind of take the punches and go, okay, we're unfazed. We've been here before. Even though that was their first CFP appearance, they played like they'd been there, like Alabama, for 4 straight years. At that time, of course. But yeah, TCU, unbelievable story, unbelievable chapter in their career, or in Sonny Dykes' career, and that program is taking the right step forward. I'm really excited to see how TCU plays in the national championship. I don't think I'm necessarily going to pick them, but I think Georgia's got their hands full. And speaking of, like I said before, Georgia struggled, I think, in this game. This was a game where Ohio State was up 38-24. They had the game at hand. I thought Ryan Day called one of his better games in his career. It was similar to the Sugar Bowl with Clemson, where they just kind of came out and they just kept pushing the issue. CJ Stroud, they threw, and they were able to get their run plays in, maybe 5-6 yards here, 7-8 yards here. But the majority of this game rested on the right arm of CJ Stroud. And boy, was he electric. And I think I would argue, his best collegiate game right before the lead up to the draft. And I think this is just chatter with within my own family who know football, and I'd say pretty well. He said CJ Stroud's making a case for the number one pick tonight. And I know he didn't win the Heisman, but he was a two-time finalist. And at Ohio State, the big program recognition, he's played his best ball when it matters the most. The Rose Bowl in 2022 against Utah, where he led that comeback with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and in Saturday's game. Goodness, I'm getting my days mixed up with the whole vacation. But yeah, CJ's played his best games when it's mattered the most. I'm usually not very high on Ohio State quarterbacks, given the track record when you got guys like Haskins and you got other guys in the past who have not been able to kind of mold to the NFL game and do it as well. But Justin Fields looks to be the one that breaks that trend with Ohio State quarterbacks. And I'm excited to see it. Also, other Ohio State quarterbacks, JT Barrett comes to mind as well. Braxton Miller transitioned to a wide receiver. So I never was like, ooh, I'm all in on CJ Stroud. But you come in and you take this Georgia defense that's much improved from last year, believe it or not, despite losing 5 starters on defense going to the NFL draft. They looked pretty good. They looked pretty weak out there. And I think it was a lot of motion. It was a lot of play action. The Ohio State offensive line, who had been criticized going into this game, played their best game, giving CJ enough time to be able to survey the field. He was making throws to Marvin Harrison Jr., who, goodness, plays like his father. Good Lord. It was unbelievable to see. And I think as a Buckeye fan, don't pull the trigger on firing Ryan Day. I heard a lot of that conversation after the Michigan game. He's 45-6 as the coach of the Buckeyes. I think that was the best at 45-5. It was the best record for any coach with a minimum of 50 games under his belt. So I think you got to give him a lot of credit. He coached a hell of a game. He kept them in it. And at the very end, it just wasn't in the cards for him. It came down to a kick field goal that ended up shanking left as the ball dropped on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for 2023. I thought that was pretty cool. The kick went up in 2022 and it went down in 2023 with Pat McAfee screaming his ears off on his little Manning-esque cast. But I think looking ahead, let's look towards the future. Does TCU, I think the big question for the next couple days will be, can TCU match up with Georgia's physicality? I think that's always going to be there. Will they, almost in a mental sense, be able to go, okay, we've matched Michigan's physicality, but it could be a completely different level for Georgia. And I think TCU needs to look at the Ohio State film and say, okay, we need to get Max Duggan, who can run with the football, get him out in motion, a lot of play action, a lot of disguises, a lot of things this way, maybe a jet motion that way. I think you have to really give Georgia a lot to digest and make them make decisions on the fly. I think that's where Ohio State had the most success last night. And I think TCU needs to attack that. And on defense, they need to make Stetson Bennett uncomfortable. There was a couple plays here and there last night where Bennett was kind of forcing it where it wasn't really there. They have to do that, and they have to do that often and consistently. Stetson's a gamer. He's gotten so much better in his 3 years at quarterback with Georgia, the year that they went to the Peach Bowl, the national championship year, and this year where he was a Heisman finalist. He's taken significant strides in his game. He's got that clutch gene. He's a little cocky. He's a little arrogant, but it really plays well to his game. He's 25 years old. He's experienced, and he's been in this situation before. So TCU, I think striking first is important. You got to hammer the Ohio State tape on the flight to LA. Really excited about it. I'm going to take the Bulldogs, though, to win 38-24. I really just think Georgia's going to be too much for them. TCU is a nice story, but I think Georgia's on the verge of a dynasty. And so when we return, I'm going to take a short break, get some water. We're going to talk about my experience at the Orange Bowl and what went wrong for the Clemson Tigers coming up.